You could leave life right now. Let that land. Not as a threat, not as a warning, as an invitation to ask yourself quietly, honestly, in the space between one breath and the next, am I living the way I would live if I knew how little time remained? Marcus Aurelius asked himself this every single day, not from despair, from clarity. He was the most powerful person on the face of the earth. He commanded armies. He shaped empires. And still he wrote these words by candlelight, for no one but himself. Do everything as if it were the thought or action of a dying person. This is not morbidity. This is the most alive a person can possibly be. Part 1. The exception to the rule. There is a belief we carry quietly through life, that power corrupts. And history, more often than not, agrees. But then there is Marcus, not born to a royal family, not handed an empire by bloodline, chosen as a young person, groomed for something most would spend a lifetime clawing toward. And what was the first thing he did with that power? He shared it. Later, at the depths of a plague that was killing millions, when Rome's economy was devastated and people were dying in the streets, Marcus Aurelius walked through the imperial palace and began to mark things for sale. For 2 months, on the great lawn of the emperor's palace, he sold the jewels, the robes, the finery, the symbols of his own supremacy offered to strangers so that the treasury could serve the suffering. He did not announce it with speeches. He simply did it. This is what true greatness looks like. Not the accumulation of things, not the performance of power, but the willingness when it costs something real to place others before your own comfort. To say, I do not need this while you are struggling. The question this asks of us is not small. What would you be willing to give up if it would genuinely help someone else? Most of us never have to answer it. The ones who do, and answer it honestly, become unforgettable. Part 2. The door that closes, the window that opens. There are moments in every life when a path closes. A relationship ends, an opportunity disappears, a plan dissolves into something unrecognizable. And the mind, in that moment, does what minds do. It decides this is the end. I am stuck. There is no way forward. This was the only path, and it is gone. Marcus Aurelius looked at this with different eyes. He said, the impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way. Not a promise that nothing can stop you, not a denial of difficulty, but something more precise. When one door closes, other capacities remain open. You may not be able to move forward in the direction you planned, but you can still practice patience. You can still practice forgiveness. You can still choose curiosity over bitterness. You can still grow in the direction the obstacle points. No one can prevent that. Not circumstance, not another person, not time itself. The Stoics believed this completely. No one can stop us from accommodating, adapting, integrating the very things that tried to break us and turning them into new paths. This is not optimism. It is a form of sovereign freedom. The knowledge that the power to choose how you respond belongs to you and only you, regardless of what arrives. Part 3. The knowledge that doesn't move. Here is something worth sitting with uncomfortably. Most of us already know what we need to do. We know the conversation we need to have, the habit we need to release, the work we keep postponing, the person we keep meaning to become. The information is not missing. The action is. Marcus Aurelius wrote it plainly. You could be good today. Instead, you choose tomorrow. There is something almost tender about this observation, the way he does not judge, but simply notices the quiet tragedy of the life lived perpetually in preparation. The diet that starts Monday, the apology given eventually, the dream approached someday. Someday is not a day of the week. The Stoics had a practice they called the discipline of action, the understanding that at the end, after all the philosophy, after all the reflection, what remains is this. What did you do? Not what you believed, not what you intended. What did you actually do? And the answer begins not with a grand gesture, but with the smallest possible step. Taken now, Not tomorrow, now. Because now is the only time that has ever existed. Part 4. The anxiety that lives inside you. There is a particular discovery that arrives only in stillness. When all the noise quiets, the obligations, the schedules, the endless motion of a full life, you might expect to feel relief. And then you notice that the anxiety is still there, unchanged, unrelated to the things you blamed it on. Marcus Aurelius understood this. He wrote about it with remarkable honesty. I escaped anxiety. And then, correcting himself, no, I discarded it, because it was within me. This was not written in comfortable times. It was written during a plague, while people were dying, while the empire was suffering. And still he traced the anxiety back to its true source. Not to circumstance, but to the self. This changes everything. Because if the anxiety lives inside you, not in the traffic, not in the deadline, not in the difficult relationship, then no external change will dissolve it. But the internal change can. The awareness that you are the one giving the situation its power. The recognition that the story is being written in your own mind. That recognition is the beginning of something the Stoics considered sacred. Genuine freedom. Part 5. The morning that belongs to you. Before the world claimed him, Marcus Aurelius claimed himself. He rose early, not because it was easy, not because he was required to, but because he asked himself a simple question each morning. What were you made for? To lie here under the covers, or to do the work of a living being? And then he sat with his journal, not to record events, not to perform wisdom for future readers, but to think carefully, privately, honestly about who he was, what he believed, and whether his actions were aligned with both. And then he worked on the most important thing, with full concentration, as if it were the last thing he would ever do. You do not need an empire to adopt this practice. You need only a few minutes before the world speaks first. A moment to ask, what matters most today? What would I regret leaving undone? What kind of person do I intend to be before this day closes? Those questions, asked consistently, slowly reshape everything. Part 6. Strict with yourself, gentle with others. Here is a principle the Stoics return to repeatedly, and one that is easy to corrupt. Tolerant with others, strict with yourself. All of this reflection, all of this philosophy, all of this reaching toward virtue, it is self-discipline, not a license to judge others, not a framework for correcting those around you. Self-discipline. Marcus Aurelius was not naive about other people. He knew they were frustrating. He wrote about it openly, the way people obstruct, disappoint, act against their own principles. And then he said something that changes the entire relationship with difficulty. Other people are not just the obstacle, they are also the way. Because it is easy to be patient when nothing tests your patience. It is easy to be kind when kindness costs nothing. But to be just in the face of injustice. To be calm in the face of someone else's chaos. To be generous when you have reason to be bitter. That is the practice. That is where philosophy stops being a concept and becomes a life. Part 7. 3 gifts from a dying empire. Before we close, 3 things Marcus Aurelius left behind. Not in marble, not in monuments, but in the private pages of a journal he never intended anyone to read. The first, Amor Fati. It did not happen to you. It happened for you. Not because suffering is romantic, not because loss should be celebrated, but because the fire, as Marcus wrote, turns everything it touches into fuel and brightness. What arrived uninvited can still be transformed into something that serves you. This is not denial. It is alchemy. The second, live for more than yourself. The Stoics did not study philosophy to become better at accumulating. They studied it to ask, what am I contributing? What am I building that will outlast me? How am I moving something forward for those who come after? The fruit of a life well lived, Marcus said, is not wealth or fame or comfort. It is good character and acts for the common good. The third, Memento Mori. Remember that you will die. Not to frighten, to clarify. Because when you hold that truth gently, when you let it inform what you say and do and think, the trivial becomes obviously trivial. The essential becomes obviously essential. The people you love become obviously worth whatever it costs to show them that you do. You could leave life right now. Let that determine what you do today. What you say, how carefully you listen, how fully you arrive in the moments that are still yours. Life is not long, but it is, in each of its moments, entirely enough. If you are present enough to receive it,